Discuss the essential conditions for exercise of legislative powers by the governor. Legislative powers by governor means what? Ordinance making, right? Discuss the legality of re-promulgation of ordinances by the governor without placing them before the legislature. So, two parts to this question. On what circumstances or what can be the reasons for legislative power exercising by the governor, then like whether the re-promulgation is a legal violation or something like that. This is the question. So you introduce by saying that okay, governor can use this, but when it is used excessively through re-promulgation, there is a point of contention. So what are the essential conditions or circumstances during which governor can exercise this power? First of all, there must be an emergency situation, and governor must be satisfied that okay, there is no other way other than promulgating ordinances. Then third, that must be placed before the legislature when it meets. First part. So circumstantial emergency, like for example COVID-19 lockdown, the legislature is not in session. So in Maharashtra, Kerala, etc., they relied on this ordinance signing by the governor to enforce lockdowns and manage health necessities. Second, governor must be satisfied. Okay, there is an emergency situation and there is no legislature in session. For example, in 2018, the Jammu Kashmir governor promulgated an ordinance on Jammu Kashmir Reservation Amendment Ordinance. So, for like amending the Jammu Kashmir Reservation Ordinance, he promulgated this amendment ordinance. For what? There was a situation that like mandating immediate need for specific reservation measures in the region. So that's why it was promulgated at that time. Then placement before the legislature. So you can say that okay, ordinances are temporary. That's for addressing the period only in which the legislature is not in session. So as soon as the legislature meets again or reconvenes again, that must be placed before the legislature. For example, in the case of Punjab, in goods and services like tax ordinance in 2017, ordinance was promulgated. Then that was very important about very important tax reform. So as soon as the legislature met into session, there were discussions on this, and that was finally incorporated into the law after proper legislative scrutiny. So that thing you can tell. Then you can tell about the nature of the ordinance. Okay, the ordinance is temporary, and that could be and that could be repeatedly used by the political party in rule for like implementing their agenda. So that's why there arises the case of re-promulgation of ordinances. They don't want opposition to vote upon it, or they don't want media attention to this. So thereby without placing this in table of the legislature, they will be just re-promulgating. Governor will be again promulgating the ordinance without keeping this in the table of the house. So repeated re-promulgation without seeking legislative approval is constitutionally dubious. So this is the question, right? Legality of re-promulgation is illegal actually, but they are using a constitutional loophole to prevent being questioned by the court, as there is no constitutional amendment to prevent this re-promulgation. Okay, so example, the very infamous DC Wadhwa versus State of Bihar case, like many times they have just re-promulgated the ordinances for years on certain subjects. So because of this, what is happening? The bypassing of legislative process. So that is evading the legislative discussions and debates. Just on a sign of governor, a new law is created. For example, land reforms in many states, and in the case of parliament as well, that was actually continuously enforced by ordinances without ever getting the debates in the legislature. Then this particular provision potentially jeopardizes the upholding of democratic norms, because the essence of democracy is based on the notion that elected legislature will be making the majority of laws, but here who is making? Governor. So actually elected legislature crafting the majority of laws means they are actually representing the diverse section of people. So when they are crafting a law, that will be for the welfare of diverse sections of the population. So that is the essence of democracy that is actually being violated here. Then in the example again a Bihar case, Krishna Kumar Singh versus State of Bihar case, the Supreme Court underscored that letting the critical matters like property rights etc. be decided through repeated ordinances. That means a single person is deciding, okay, let this thing be the norm. Like that is actually bypassing the democratic process of checks and balances. When ruling party is doing anything to implement their agenda, focusing only their vote bank, there can be checked and balanced by the opposition party. For that, debate has to happen. For that, the re-promulgation must be addressed. So that was being said by the Krishna Kumar Singh versus State of Bihar case, Supreme Court. Then you can conclude by saying that okay, governor's power to issue the ordinance serves as a mechanism to address the urgent state needs. But since the essence of India's democracy is the legislative deliberation, you have to use this provision judiciously. Okay, so constant re-promulgation without legislative vetting can tip this balance, like this particular like balance of emergency versus normalcy, and like checks and balances between the opposition and ruling party, everything. So that will be tipped because of this particular like ordinance enacting by the governor. So that provision need to be judiciously used without like making it a violation of the constitution or the ethos or essence of democracy. With that, we can wind up. Thank you.